An out-of-favor male star wanted to make a comeback, buried himself in a coffin, thinking that he could use the gimmick of fake death to return to the entertainment industry. But the only person who knew was about to dig him out with a shovel. An accident happened. Today, we recommend a satirical and twist-ending movie, The End of Glory, on the domains of .com and .top. Let's watch it together. Now, the man was completely confused. Only the agent knew that. He was buried underground. Now, the agent was in a car accident. Even if he doesn't die, he will be in the hospital for 10 days or so. He would have already turned into a pile of bones. At this time, Peter was in panic. It was supposed to help him plan to get back on top of his life. How could it turn out like this? Soon, Peter's breathing became increasingly rapid. Now the remaining oxygen in the coffin was not enough to keep him alive until tomorrow morning. Then he shouted for help and wanted to seek help from people outside the coffin, but it was already midnight. There was no one around. His brain was running fast. Since things had come to this, he must calm down now. Fortunately, before carrying out the plan, Pete had thought of all possible accidents. He quickly took out his phone and was ready to call the police. But the moment he dialed, he immediately reacted. Because once his feigning death was exposed, his reputation would be completely ruined. So, Pete could only send messages to his friends in the entertainment industry. But since the phone was newly bought, and during the day, the other party did see that Peter was dead. So they didn't believe what he said. So they directly blocked and deleted him. Seeing the exclamation mark on the screen, Pete trembled with fear. He tried to control himself and calm down, but when he thought the image of being suffocated to death, tears couldn't stop flowing down. However, the next second, the inner fear directly led to his breakdown. He told himself to stay calm, but he couldn't control himself at all. Then he kept slapping the coffin board with his hands. And even the phone that was used to save his life was thrown out. Then he vented hysterically and said some rude words to embolden himself. But at this moment, the starry ceiling for lighting suddenly went out. The already narrow space, now without the protection of light. Peter was visibly panicked, although there was still some oxygen in the coffin, but he could feel a sense of suffocation swept over his body. Fortunately, he still had a trace of sanity. He found the phone he had thrown away and immediately turned on the light. In this small and enclosed space, he felt a little safe. Using the dim light, he touched the remote control. However, when he pressed the button, he found that he couldn't control the starry ceiling. Peter couldn't believe what he saw. The panic that had just subsided once again swept over his body. He could only keep hitting the wooden board above to calm his inner panic. Perhaps God still had a little mercy on Peter. After his banging, the originally broken starry ceiling miraculously lit up. With a glimmer of hope to live, he adjusted his body and lay down in the coffin again. Then he began to calm his inner fear. He must think of a way to leave now, otherwise he would go crazy, even if he didn't die. Soon he thought of another person who could help him escape. Based on the memories stored in his mind, Peter dialed the other person's phone number. But when the call was connected, the person on the other end didn't believe him. How could anyone bury himself in a coffin? So in order to convince him, Peter simply made a video call. Build a website with a .com or .top domain name to create your exclusive online brand. On the phone, the female assistant on the other side was almost scared to death. The just dead Peter was now talking to her. No one could believe it. No one would believe such a thing would happen. After much persuasion, he finally convinced the female assistant that he was still alive, and she promised to dig him out now. With the female assistant's assurance, Peter's heart finally settled down. But after waiting and waiting, but an hour passed in a blink of an eye. Unable to bear the loneliness, he called again, but this time the person on the other end was different. The female assistant was tied to a chair. The person answering the phone claimed that he was an employee of a mental hospital. Just now, the female assistant came to the cemetery with a shovel and then dug without saying a word and was mistaken for mentally ill by the staff. So it developed into the current situation. Peter was so angry at the stupidity of the female assistant and was so angry that he couldn't even save a person. But before he could continue, the employee on the other end hung up the phone. The only hope was wasted like this. After thinking for a while, Peter, whose thoughts became clearer and clearer, he decided to call a ride-hailing car. He thought that as long as he gave enough money, he would definitely achieve his goal. But when he saw that he was going to pick up a passenger, the driver directly refused Peter's order.
Козёл ты вонючий, кустарбек!
Seeing another road blocked, he searched for the TV station's phone number online. Peter believed that any paparazzi wouldn't refuse such explosive news. To increase the credibility of his not dying, he even directly took a video to the TV station, but he never expected that. The cleverness backfired. The other party sent him an AI face-swapping video. At this point, Pitt didn't care whether he had committed a crime. He immediately pressed the alarm button. However, what he didn't expect was that the police didn't believe what he said, because no one could be so stupid. The sharp words from the other side pierced directly into Peter's heart, which made him fall into deep despair for a moment. At this time, the phone's battery also showed a red mark. The .com and .top domain names are highly recognizable, presenting boundless business opportunities. Peter felt that all the bad things had gathered together, which was almost overwhelming him. In desperation, Peter could only try to push the coffin lid open with his body. It was like a drought. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't even pry it open. Looking at the decreasing phone battery, he regretted every decision he had made before. If God gave him another chance, Peter would never rely on his fame to touch the breasts of the actress he collaborated with. While the phone still had a little power, he made a confession to the screen. When someone saw this video, it means he has died. Peter knew how asshole he used to be, but he hoped that everyone he had hurt could forgive him. If there is an afterlife, he would be a kind person. However, when Peter woke up again, he found his agent appeared in front of him and looked at him in disbelief. He thought the agent had saved him, but in the next second, the scene in front of him made Peter's brain freeze because he saw all his relatives and friends. Just when he was puzzled, the agent directly revealed the truth. It turned out that everything was fake. Since the moment Peter was buried in the coffin, the game had already begun, whether it was the car accident or the female assistant being taken to a mental hospital. Even the phone call that Peter made were also intercepted by hackers. Everything he saw were all arranged in advance, and the purpose of doing this is to make Peter change his asshole style, and it seems to be working wonders. After listening to his good brother's explanation, Peter was very grateful for everything he had done. He has repented and realized the value of life. The past self could even be described as arrogant, but at this moment, he decides not to ignore the people around him. But now, Peter is going to do one last thing about violence.
Сука!
The movie ends here.